Hi, I'm Manny Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller forecast for Pisces for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blog so you can use those energies in the best way. If you'd love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program, which may still have some slots available. So what's going on in this month of July? So much is going on in this month of July. We have Mars retrograde still occurring. We have Mercury retrograde going to happen again. We have 2 eclipses in the month of July, and we have Jupiter going direct, and this is a really big deal. So I'm going to try to touch on all of these in general and specific for Pisces. So Mars still being in retrograde is giving us permission to chill out. If you are motivated to be productive, then only follow those pursuits that are working out. If you're trying to make something happen and it's not and you're getting frustrated, that's your red alarm flag that says if you're getting frustrated, then you're not supposed to be pushing in this direction and you need to chill out and be the spider, which we'll talk more about when we talk about the general transit report after. So that's the keynote of Mars retrograde. Time to relax, time to go on vacation, time to chill out, time to rest. You can be comfortably productive, but only if the things are flowing for you. Also, many things can come to you, a manifestation that you've planned for a while. Mars retrograde often brings things into your life that you have been working on or hoping for in the past. Mercury retrograde is going to bring in other blasts from the past. Whenever we've got such a strong focus on retrogrades, it's really a time to be the earthworm. Okay, the earthworm works back over soil and works back over soil and makes it super fine and super fertile. So while this can be a great time of productivity if it's flowing, it can be a great time of manifestation for things that come to you. It can also be an epic time for setting your fertile ground for your crops for the future. Okay, so Jupiter going direct is a very exciting thing. Jupiter is the ruler of luck and benevolence and optimism and expansion and growth. So it's been in retrograde for about 4 months, and now that it's waking up, the sectors of life that are where it is in your chart, and then also in Scorpio for everybody, because that's the sign that it's in, will start to show in the outer realms, sometimes even to the day as Jupiter goes direct. Early on in the beginning, you might even notice in the first week or a couple of weeks like this major movement forward in the midst of this retrograde. So things involving close relationships, money, business things, inheritances, solving mysteries, anything having to do with marital things or family projects, and that's for everybody. Specifically for Pisces, if you're an early Pisces, or some of you middle ones will feel this too, you might see some things in education or teaching or writing or speaking or spiritual or religious projects or study, international business, international travel. Anything like that is going to be a very strong long-term story for Jupiter expanding your 9th house. And for you late degree placements, you're going to have this coming months down the road. But for you early and some of you middle, this is going to be waking up right now. Now, if you're trying to figure out if you're an early, middle, or late, you break up the 30 days of the sign into thirds. So the first 10 days for your birthday or for your rising sign is, or degrees for your rising sign, 0 to 9 degrees is early degree placements. The second 10 days or degrees are middle degree placements, and then the last 10 days or degrees are late degree placements. So you all who have the placements at the end of the sign, the manifestations come for you as well. It's just staggered, okay? So you get it later on. Now, for the rest of you middle degree placements and you late degree placements, Jupiter is waking up in the sign of Scorpio and also the house of Scorpio. So all those things that I talked about before, family projects, money, loans, inheritances, borrowing money, loaning money, anything having to do with esoteric studies or psychology or parapsychology, family or spousal money or resources or projects, or anything having to do with partnering and sharing and collaborating. You might notice those things really start to pick up. If earlier in the year you had started to see momentum either in these things for the early degree or late degree placements that I mentioned here with Jupiter, but then it kind of went cold. That's probably because Jupiter went retrograde and it started to work more in the backdrop. But now Jupiter is moving all of these projects forward. So that's what's up with Jupiter. Then we've got these two eclipses. The way that I'm setting up my discussion about eclipses is that in the June report, I talk about this July 12th eclipse. That's a partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So listen to my June report to see what implications you might have from that eclipse. In this reading, we're going to talk about where the total lunar eclipse at 4, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius is going to hit. And in my August report, we'll talk about the third eclipse, which is in August, and where that's going to hit in the Pisces chart. Okay, so now for the lunar eclipse on July 27th at almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. You could start to see manifestations of eclipses 4 to 6, even more weeks before the actual eclipse. So June, even the month after August, June, July, August is ripe time for something very important to occur that's eclipse related. And lunar eclipses often ask us to say goodbye to something. But at the same time, we could be saying hello to the new thing that's replacing the thing that's leaving. So lunar eclipses often end something. It brings something to fruition in a big way that we've been working on. It can bring something to manifestation, or it can bring just a notable occurrence that is moving along a continuum. And this would have to do with friends, friendships, groups, organizations, internet-based projects, and technology-based projects, anything having to do with media, social media, friendships, acquaintances. It could be a notable situation with a friend. You could have a friend move away, or a falling out with a friend, or something occur with a friend. So that's going to be where the main focus for this lunar eclipse is for all of you, but you early degree placements, the ones earlier in the sign, you might also see some of this manifestation in your 12th house. So the 12th house has to do with your deep psyche. And when we see lunar eclipses in this space, it could bring up topics of fears and addictions. It could bring amazing spiritual breakthroughs. It could bring anything having to do with places where we give our power away. So if you're giving your power away to an addiction of any kind, a substance, a person, love addiction, shopping addiction, food addiction, anything, places where you're giving your power away, you can have a notable event come up. And it could be a crisis that then creates movement because you have to do something about it, or it can create an epiphany. You could have a notable past life recognition, or start working with hypnosis, or something having to do with managing and training your brain, so that because we create from our brain, we create from our being and the inside of us. So this eclipse can be very much about facing a fear that allows you to get to the next level of your empowerment. So there is also one more thing I want to mention about this month, and that is actually the theme I'm calling of this month, which is called Dazzling Fun. And that is because your fifth sector, fifth house of fun, creativity, children, conception, birth, child rearing, projects being the creative of any your creative outcome, So it could be that your creative project is your baby, anything that you're working on creating or you've already created. Romance is also in here, acting, being on stage, singing, anything that has to do with people looking at you or you leading something. That energy is also accentuated for Pisces this month. So as you can see, we have a lot going on. I tried to touch on all of the pieces where I think the prominent energy is showing up for you. So now I want to talk in more detail about these general transits, the Mars retrograde, the Mercury retrograde, and the eclipses in general, and what manifestations you can expect from, and the theme of the month from all of these things put together. So I'm going to go into all that now. So the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The third one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases, it brings to fruition things intended or planned. And sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time, and there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit, and there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July, we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation, and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over ambitious, unless, of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out and it's flowing really easily and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, so we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you've already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square, and it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So we've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius on the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world. You know, so you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, B.R. Newman, at IAMHELIOS.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. If you would like to have an option for this recreation and retreat time to best use this Mars energy, maybe you would love to see me live at my Soul Connections retreat in gorgeous Siesta Key, Florida, which is on the Gulf Coast in Sarasota. I'm doing a live retreat where I'm having a small group of people do lots of fun things, restoration and healing and fun and relaxation, going to magical places that I've found in this area. So I would love to see you at my Soul Connections retreat. You can see more about that at anniehelpsyou.com. And if you scroll down, you'll see a banner for it and you can check it out. So I hope to see you live. There might be some slots still available depending on when you are looking at this. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll see you next month. Bye.